Let's look into Dezeen's top 5 houses for January. It's a new kind of format that I thought about introducing. We'll start at January, but I think we'll quickly catch up, and I'd like to do one of those videos monthly following Dezeen's top 5 houses. We'll review them, I'll let you know what I think about them, what is good or bad, potentially about their design qualities and things like that. Let us know if you like this format, and if you do, we'll simply upload more videos on this topic. Dezeen's top 5 houses for January. First, we have Vollerup Atrium House, Denmark by Henrik Jansen, Arkitekter, and Studio Marshall Blecher. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. They designed a monolithic travertine home in Denmark to age gracefully within the landscape, organizing the pavilion-like residential spaces around the central atrium with trees and a reflection pond. Sounds interesting, looks quite nice from the initial photograph. Like this shape has been popular in architecture for quite some time, so I wouldn't say it's innovative in terms of its form, but it definitely blends nicely within the landscape. It's a very low building, not too big. I think this is a view towards the courtyard. I do like the travertine color. I think it's very natural, kind of sandy. It has a bit of texture. It has this very calming feel, I believe. I do like that material a lot. It's a bit porous, so if you touch it, you feel these little bumps along its surface. I do think it's a very good material to use in general if you want to get that very earthy, natural feel. That's as well a little bit modern. Interaction between this and the wooden floor is quite nice. I am not sure about the tone color of that wooden planks, and it does seem a bit empty in the atrium. I would love to see a bit more nature or it being a little bit more occupied with something, because for now it does seem slightly like an empty space for me. Okay, but the inside is beautiful. I am a huge fan of all kind of timber wooden interiors. They are really intense. I'm sure they are not for everybody, but I think they give this very warm, natural feel where you step in and probably the smell of wood surrounds you and allows you to immediately relax, right? It also depends what tone of wood you go for when doing like full wooden interiors. So I think this one has just the right touch of warmth in it without being too orangey or reddish. That can give you a bit more outdated feel if not used properly. I really do love that design. I don't know if you see it at the back, but there's this fireplace with glass planes on both sides. I do love that concept in design. I tried to design it in a couple of my clients' homes, but unfortunately not one of them is realized yet. In the end, they went for a different approach, but it is one of my dreams to install one of those fireplaces in the future. I do like, how edited the house looks. A little bit books, a little bit of maybe some personal items and things like that. Quality of finish is very good. You can see that most of those things are bespokely made for that specific house. That means they are also very expensive. Okay, so now we see that part of the courtyard that has a little bit going on in it, a little bit more furniture. I do like that the tree kind of goes through the ground, through the terrace, through the patio and up. I think it's a very nice way of doing things, but in terms of the arrangement and furniture, they could have thought a bit more about it. We see a bit of the reflective pond, which I'm in general a fan of. Water has a very calming quality to it, and the reflections that you can get during different seasons can be very, very beautiful. When you have a sunset and it reflects those colors in the water, it kind of brings that warmth during the evenings inside the home. It is actually quite a lot in terms of taking care of it, so of course there are always ups and downs. But those curated moments with these high-end windows where you focus the view somewhere else towards the front where the chairs are located, but you still get that natural light coming in from above with this surround. It kind of gives you this cave-like experience, but being surrounded by the wood. This is a little bit more of a detailed photographs, yes, and I do love that project. I think it's a very, very good high-end design, very modern, very minimal, but with this intense wooden interior. We have the garden Laneway House, Canada by Williamson. This solid brick-clad family home in Toronto's West End was designed by Williamson to amplify the size, functionality and aesthetic of a typical Laneway house. The house was designed to feel like a primary home, not like a wood and shingle-clad garages that are typical of the laneways. This is not a utilitarian building on a laneway, but one that has presence and enlivens the laneway as a traditional home does a street. So I like how they thought how the exterior of the house impacts the space, the street around us. I think that's very important in terms of this interaction. When you go through the street, you want to see and be amazed by things you see. Not everything needs to be exactly the same and fit the exact same proportions, but if you think about the context but in a way that's slightly new, slightly innovative, I think it creates very, very beautiful walks and connections and something out of the ordinary. I really like the texture of this facade. It's a little bit unusual, and I think the proportions, even though a bit asymmetrical, I think they're very well balanced, giving the home a sense of elegance, right? I think they are very well made, you know, the combination of this kind of earthy, textured look with this slim, modern black elements, I think that works very well. When we go inside, okay, so we have a bit of a timber interior. I actually do like timber ceilings. I think they become more and more trendy right now. The concrete floor, that looks great. I think this is the more granular part that you see stains on them a little bit less, because actually when you have a polished concrete floor, whenever somebody has it, they will tell you it stains a lot. It's not that easy to maintain. They are sealed and fixed like that, but you still need to be very careful during the use of it. The interior is nice, but I call it very architectural interior in a way. I think very often when an architect designs the interior of the house, it has this very specific style, and kind of that's it. You have a lot of white, a lot of concrete, and a bit of natural wood, right, with some white elements. That's a very, very standard interior. It's still very beautiful, but I'm looking for something more engaging, something that amazes you a bit more, that's a little bit more unexpected. This is very beautiful, it's perfectly fine, but looking at the exterior and this kind of unusual brick cladding, I wanted to see a bit more of that inside, right? I think it's a perfectly beautiful wooden house. I love the ceiling, and like in that bathroom, for example, this stony texture looks really nice. Seeing a little bit suspended, giving the sense of lightness in the space, and of course the large integrated mirror kind of makes the space feel a bit bigger. It does again give you this kind of slightly cave-like feeling. Maybe I almost imagine, you know, see this wooden thing in the middle, it almost makes me imagine the waterfall behind me, which is very nice, very beautiful. And again, the very wood, white, concrete, light tones. It's a very well balanced interior, but I think it's a bit too simple for me. I would love to see a bit more, but the facade is amazing. Also, in this kitchen, I'm not a fan of white kitchens. I think they are too white, too bright. I personally don't like the spaces that are too bright because they hurt my eyes. If the space is, you know, surrounded by whiteness, it gives me a bit of this hospitality look. I do like, you know, that it's balanced though by the timber ceiling, and the marble as a backsplash over there looks beautiful with that window at the top. This architect really knows how to balance volumes, right? So whenever I look at the photograph and all of those volumes, like even if you see the kitchen like hood, this is all very well balanced. Amount of space you have from the hood to the right, and then the hood, and then from the hood to the left, it's all very, very well designed. I wish it wasn't just like a white kitchen. It gives me too much whiteness and kind of this hospital cleanness a bit, but still I know people who love white kitchens, so why not? It's just not my cup of tea. Lowater UK by Fletcher Crane Architects. Fletcher Crane Architects designed this house in Buckinghamshire to blend with vernacular architecture of the surrounding conservation area. A group of interconnecting spaces feature traditional red brick facades with perforated openings and gabled roofs contrasted against contemporary interior finishes and connected by a series of biscuiting pathways. Lowater seeks to forge a relationship between the local church and the quality of historic property to evolve an architecture of red brick, pitched roof forms and courtyard gardens in a relevant and respectful manner. It's interesting that they wanted to build this relationship between the local church, because I did get this kind of churchy vibe from it, but in a very subtle way. I personally really like this kind of overlay of brick against the window frames. I think it's a very well done house, you know, you get that sense of water front of the house. It does look like a pond, right? I think the only problem with having water so close to your patio doors is that you step out and then you need to immediately turn, right? Your functional outdoor space is not necessarily very close to your functional indoor space. So I would leave a bit more space there for some form of outdoor seating and outdoor entertainment area. But I do like the brick texture is very often used in England, and I do know that building something a bit more out there, a bit more modern in the conservation areas in UK is not that easy. There are much stricter planning laws in that space. I'm not a fan of this kind of gray proportions when you have a window and this kind of gray portion between. I think it looks a bit heavy, to be honest. However, I would maybe include some timber cladding and maybe run it all the way to the top. There's something about this proportion that seems off to me. The courtyard here, this is a really nice space. You know, we have a bit of a greenery with some forms of other foliage. Timber elements play very well with it. You almost feel like you're in this kind of oasis inside the forest because the timber columns make you feel of tree trunks, I think. I think the only problem is that all of this outdoor space seems like it's designed to be unused. So it's very perfect, tailored, but I don't see any recreation area. So I would love to see a bit more of that. And to be honest, I would love to see in general in architectural photography some more photographs with the space being used or designed in a way that we can almost feel it being used. These are very beautiful or tailored, and I know it's not a very easy thing to do. Okay, so the inside of the space. The inside is nice. I do love this kind of very rough steel colored railing with this flowy handrail. I do find that quite beautiful, and in this pitch roof, whenever you make a roof light at the top, it does give you quite a stunning light coming from the top and exposed timber beams, right, with timber ceiling. I think that's very beautiful, and there's something very fluidy about those proportions, which I think is quite stunning. This view, again, very tailored, very kind of symmetrical timber plus textures and the slotted timber ceiling that kind of almost brings you even more towards this view that's outside, and the view seems very beautiful. So I really like how they made that view almost sacred by the way they positioned the corridor, the more darker wood, right? So you kind of feel like going through this darker corridor into much brighter open space, and this view zooms you in. So yeah, I do enjoy that. This element of the ground floor here could be designed a bit better in terms of interior design. I'm not sure how much the architects have had a say in that, because you know it depends on a client whether they choose or do not choose an architect to be involved in that part, or they hire an interior designer. Sometimes architects do both, but not always. Shift House, Spain by Nomo Studio. Located on the Spanish island of Menorca, Shift House by Nomo Studio was formed by displacing a stacking of series of rectilinear volumes into the hillside. Alternating bands of glazing and fluted concrete wrapped the four-story home, with the studio intending for the facade to develop a natural patina over time. Shift House has a clear will to maximize sea views and outdoor spaces. The location and its direct surroundings dictate everything from shape to choice of materials, colors and textures. That sounds interesting. I do like architecture that blends with nature a bit more seamlessly. It uses natural materials. You know, light colors outdoors are often used in lighter climates as they do not focus the heat so much as darker colors. So those volumes here are quite nicely, I think, balanced, and that this volume is offsetted a little bit from the ground one. It makes the thing seem lighter and almost like mountain-like in a way. It gives you, even though it's very rigid in form, it gives you more natural feel and proportions. Some people don't like it, but I do like it that this top volume is offsetted from the bottom one. First of all, when it rains, you can have time to look for your keys before you open the door and not getting wet at the same time, but it also offers a bit more shading for the windows that are below, and the house does not overheat as much. So it's a very clever way of how the form of the building as well, not only the materials themselves, can help you prevent overheating the house. So yeah, this is as well a very nice, beautiful view, patterned, layered quality to it. I do like the texture of those tiles, these very small vertical lines that kind of juxtapose the horizontal quality of this house. And can you see as well how they blended the color of the window frames? It's a bit darker than the facade in general, but they almost make them feel unnoticeable in a way because they have this very earthy tone to it. So of course the infinity pool, it does look beautiful, I can't argue with that. And the the inside, so this corridor is too white for me. It's too much whiteness. I think they wanted to focus on the form. They use this kind of whitish limestone. On the staircase, it gives a bit of a texture to this space, because if that was white, that would be too much, definitely too much. But I would still make something more inside, like add some of these wooden qualities, or even the same texture that's used on the facade. If it was used on the walls or on the ceiling, it would give this space a bit more depth. This is too white, too slim. There's no haptic invitation in this space. This kind of rattan style wardrobes were quite popular a while back, so I personally do like them. My husband hates them. Yes, they give you a bit of natural feel, but I think while I do like a minimal design, a minimal can be done in many different ways. This one seems a little bit too boring for me. But again, from the outside and the arrangement of spaces, this looks very interesting. I think we have our final house. Form looks interesting. Casa Lagunita, Chile, by Croxato and Opazo Architects. A wedge-shaped terrace protrudes from this whitewashed concrete home by Croxato and Opazo Architects outside Santiago, Chile. Built into the sloping side to make full use of the terrain, Casa Lagunita is split into 3 distinct platforms connected by a series of internal and external wooden staircases next to the generous floor-to-ceiling glazing. That sounds interesting. I do like the houses that make good use of a terrain, or like the houses that are inserted into the cliffs, and the form of that is beautiful. It does look like concrete that has kind of wooden planks pressed onto them to give it this kind of concretey wooden textured look. It is actually, as far as I'm aware, quite expensive to accomplish, but it does look beautiful. Architects do tend to love this design, this texture. And I do like how this front is offsetted. It's probably offsetted towards some kind of the view, and the light inside seems very warm, and it nicely kind of juxtaposes the roughness and coldness of the concrete. I like how they presented this house in the context. You can see that on the lower levels you have variety of different houses that looks very interesting. I'm not sure about the houses that are at the back over there. This seems like this kind of more generic copy and paste housing that I'm not a fan of. Like, even if you design blocks of flats and stuff like that, vary them, make them more interesting, more beautiful in a way, blend them better with the surrounding, because this hillside, this greenery looks amazing. And you know, even those houses, even though they look all different, I quite enjoy their difference in a way, but I would hope to see something more interesting over there, but you can't have everything, I guess. So yeah, this space looks really inviting even from the street. I do enjoy this warmthness of color inside. They have timber framed windows. Even though they're not as durable as aluminium windows, I do love the feel of them. They feel very, very warm and a bit rustic. And the inside of the space, even from here I can see they went for this more cozy vibe. You know, the woods that have a little bit of a knots in them, they definitely tend to give you a more kind of cozy interior. So as you can see here in this space, you have this very fully wooden interior. You can see how different this wooden interior is from the one we saw in the first house. The first one was very like tailored, high-end, minimal. This gives you a much more cozier hut in the wood kind of vibes, but still very nicely done and finished. Oh, I love how this kind of wooden planks go from the inside to the outside. This kind of approach is a bit more modern, and I think you can definitely see how they took attention in the way the planks are directed and organized. And this wooden frame of the window gives you a very warm feel that's a little bit juxtaposed by this black metal railing. We saw top houses from January on the Dezeen website. I do enjoy their content. They do present it very well. Thank you for preparing that article, and I hope you enjoyed my review of the spaces inside. If you want me to go a little bit more in detail into any one of those houses, or maybe look a little bit more into plans and layouts inside of them, I'll be more than happy to do so. Let me know which one you love the most, and if you enjoyed today's video. If so, we'll do our best to do more content like that in the future. Thank you very much. Bye.